Welcome to another edition of TrilliumTalkTV. Something different, something better. My next guest is the Trillium Party's candidate for Brampton South. He's a production supervisor in the auto industry, John Grant. John, thank you for being a part of TrilliumTalkTV.
Very excited to be here. Thank you.
There still is an auto industry in Ontario.
Yes, it's doing very well actually in Brampton. There's a lot of investment that is going to be happening over the summer. Fiat Chrysler is putting about $650 million into their paint shop. So we're looking forward to a very, very fruitful future for all of Brampton.
So there is still potential with the right people in charge in politics to revive industrial production in the province.
No, absolutely. I firmly believe that. There's not only in traditional manufacturing, but in futuristic manufacturing, 3D printing, et cetera, et cetera. Brampton really has the opportunity and the people and the skills to bring that type of manufacturing back to Southern Ontario. Absolutely.
Oh, fantastic. But that's not why you're in politics in the first place, is it? Describe what got you interested in the first place.
Well, back in 2014, I ran municipally in wards 3 and 4 for Region Council. And my main platform, plank, was dealing with solid municipal waste. The plans for building a new incinerator for Peel Region were about to go through to replace the antiquated Algonquin plant that is still up and running. The problem that I had is that the type of plant that they wanted to build, I don't think was efficient enough, and was really going to cause a lot more problems than the current Algonquin plant was going to be producing. So I decided to run and use that as my main platform plank, because I am dead set against landfills. Dead set against landfills.
Why so dead set against landfills?
They pollute our groundwater, and regardless of what anybody is going to tell you, over a period of time, there's going to be some leaching, and it's going to go right into our groundwater. We have huge landfills all over Ontario, with more scheduled to be built, and this is something that just has to stop.
Well, now, when you say solid municipal waste, what sorts of stuff are we talking about leaching into the groundwater?
Like I say, anything that you're throwing out today, again, once it's decomposing, and it's mixing with whatever is in that landfill. There's construction material, there's household waste. Anything can combine, and you don't really know what's going to be going into your groundwater. And that's not something that I'd like to have in my backyard, and I don't think anybody else would.
Well, what's the alternative?
Incineration. There are a number of very good programs that are available and that are currently being used over in Europe. Even Durham Region, their waste treatment plant is doing very well and serves the people of Durham exceptionally efficiently and very well. And they don't have any landfill issues out in Durham.
Well, okay, but global warming, even if Europeans are okay with incineration, global warming is a concern. Mm-hmm. Incinerating household waste, municipal waste, that's got to lead to carbon dioxide being released into the atmosphere. Okay. How do you weigh this against the alternative, just burying everything underground?
Well, again, if we are burying our waste, it is going to transform, and the byproduct of that transformation primarily is methane gas, and methane gas is, of course, the worst greenhouse gas that is currently available. And currently, I think it is, if I remember correctly, it's responsible for about 7% of Ontario's emissions into the environment, and that's again something I think that is just absolutely unacceptable. We should not be doing this.
Oh, we've got a question from Facebook. This one comes from Elizabeth Marshall. But then there is the Fraser report that the cost of electricity has rid Ontario of 64% of its manufacturing jobs and industry. What should be done about the cost of electricity?
Well, that's a very good question.
Could these incinerators be hooked up to some sort of generating capacity?
Oh, absolutely. And like I say, for me personally, it sort of leads into another passion of mine, which is getting into the food security. We could be utilizing this solid municipal waste to produce electricity, which would then power essentially major grow operations to grow fruits and vegetables 365 days a year, 7 days a week. these are multi-level indoor grow operations that will secure our food supply, so we don't have to rely on California, Chile, and other countries to make sure that we have fresh food for our families all year round.
But we'd still import wine from California and Chile.
Oh, I would not be against that whatsoever. No,
Fantastic.
No.
A man with taste.
Yeah,
That's what we need to see in politics. So why did you choose to run for the Trillium Party? Why not run for the Conservatives? Why not run for the Liberals? Why not run for the NDP?
I was shut out of the Conservative Party 100%. I was elected as the first vice president for the local riding association of Brampton South at their founding meeting, and unfortunately was never contacted again by the riding association or the party executive. Was not informed when the nomination meeting was happening. Was again not having gone to any of the meetings, and not sure exactly why that happened, but I'm pretty sure that the current candidate for the Conservatives would understand why.
Well, for those who are outside of local politics, we want to peek at the sausage factory. How does this all happen? How does someone get nominated to represent one of the major parties in one of these ridings?
It's I think it's I'm not going to say corrupt, but I'm going to say it's improper. Because what happens is, for instance, if I wanted to become the Conservative Party, the Progressive Conservative nominee for Brampton South, I'm going out and I'm selling memberships. And this could be to anybody. It's not necessarily even citizens. These are just people that are living in Brampton, but they may not necessarily be Canadian citizens. And not that I'm against anybody and everybody getting involved in the political situation, but I think that if we are going to choose our elected officials properly, we need to have some long-standing, committed people making that decision. So these are people that I think should have a membership more than just a week that are going to decide who is going to run.
So you're saying if I gather, hundreds of people to sign up for the Conservative Party, mm-hmm. and I'm elected, representative of that riding, that's potentially illegitimate because potentially those hundreds of people who signed up may not actually vote Conservative on Election Day.
Absolutely. It happens all the time, and certainly in Brampton.
No way. Now, you're someone who's concerned about the environment, clearly with your stand against municipal waste, mm-hmm. and your stand for the incineration plant, but you're against the carbon tax. How do you reconcile these two positions?
Well, certainly the carbon tax is really just a tax on a tax on a tax. And is it really actually doing anything for the environment? Absolutely not. All it is doing is padding the coffers of the current government and allowing them to spend more of our hardworking people's money elsewhere. A lot of the money is being funneled down to California. It's being funneled out to Quebec for various programs that are not helping Ontario whatsoever, and it certainly isn't reducing the carbon emissions.
Now, how does that work exactly with a carbon tax? So a carbon tax in this case being defined as just a straight tax on carbon. We're going to levy a surcharge on all carbon emissions. Is that what we have? Is that what's funneling money to Quebec and California?
Currently, cap and trade is what is in place here in Ontario, and so a company can buy credits. Okay, so this is kind of like Bitcoin. A company's buying Bitcoin that they can spend here, there, ever. Not do anything to actually reduce their emissions, but they're paying additional money for their processes. This again does not make sense to me, and I'm sure it's not making sense to all those businesses that are now leaving Ontario. The major corporations are being given a buy, not being sort of penalized for their pollution. They're just paying a certain amount of money in order to stay in business. And again, there's so many things that are happening, say, down in California where we're sending some money. There's so many things happening out in Quebec where we're sending some money. We're not seeing any of that money coming back here in Ontario.
Well, now, John, I, in my youth, spent a summer planting trees up in North Ontario. Mm-hmm. Do you think I can submit a retroactive grant for carbon credits? That must have captured a bunch of carbon from the atmosphere. Trees, as we know, consume carbon dioxide.
Well, we'll have to actually figure out exactly how many trees you planted. We'll have to do, I think, a lot of research. Maybe we'll find out exactly how much carbon those particular trees have absorbed, and give you some sort of a rebate. That no, that's not happening.
But if I was a big corporation, that would.
Again, prove to me that those trees are still alive. They'd have to do like study after study after study, wasting more taxpayers' dollars. So, the big corporations that are getting these buys with the cap and trade, just again, so they won't uproot and leave immediately. It's all going to happen if we continue on down this road.
So is this partly how the auto industry continues to operate in Ontario, with the high cost of electricity, with a cap and trade tax on the production of carbon? They're given credits to essentially bribe them to stick around?
Well, like I say, the thing that I find most frightening, and I have not been able to confirm this particular number, but I have been led to believe that the Fiat Chrysler establishment, the corporation that I work with, spends about $1.75 million a month on hydro. So again, this is not confirmed, but this is what I've been told by people that work at the plant, and that kind of seems like a little bit too much money for a corporation to be spending. To again look at how many jobs that are associated with that particular plant, not just mine, but 3,000 in the plant, and then there's the arterial plants that survive on that. We can't afford to have these plants at a competitive disadvantage. We need to ensure that we create the environment in which they thrive, get everybody working, and everybody in paying tax, and that way we can grow our economy and hopefully take care of the economic situation here in Ontario.
Excellent. We've got another comment from Facebook. This one's from Jan Hansen. So if I'm a company and a really good Liberal, would I get a big cap that I could trade?
If you're a Liberal, you probably need a really big cap because your head is so swollen. I'm telling you. And if you are a Liberal, you should be traded.
Well said. Well said. Now, circling back to our earlier question from Elizabeth Marshall, we talked a little bit about municipal waste and how that relates to electricity production. But it turns out that currently we're overproducing electricity. We're selling some of it to Quebec and some of it to New York State, sometimes not so much selling it as giving it away. So production isn't really the issue. The issue is contracts that we currently have with our producers. What can you see can be done about that, such that manufacturing isn't chased out of the province?
Well, like I say, our party has done a lot of research into this particular area. We know for a fact that we can cancel the Samsung contracts without any financial liability, and this is at the root of the problem. We have the ability to produce enough electricity with hydroelectric and nuclear power to service all of Ontario's needs for now and into the future. Once we are actually able to then lower the price of electricity by doing so, then we will start to see a lot of businesses come back, a lot of people then getting hired on. That's what we need here in Ontario, is lower hydro prices. And this is something that I've been even talking about in way back in 2014. I was actually the only municipal candidate who was actually talking about how much the hydro prices have been increasing. Because I'd seen it in Brampton at that time. I was on the Rogers debate at that time, and I tell you, it was shocking that nobody else seemed to know that their hydro rates at that time had gone up 30%. And that was shocking to me at that time, and now it's well over. I'm not even sure what the percentage is at this point, but it's just way too much.
What can you do as a municipal politician to address hydro rates?
Well, like I say, at that particular time, my idea was again to build a different type of an incinerator. I wanted a plasma arc gasification plant built, and again, using that particular power to secure our food supply, etc. What I had mentioned earlier. And this is something that can be done because even with Hydro One not necessarily being in our control, what I foresee in the future is perhaps maybe what we have to do is beat them at their own game, and that is compete with them. We still own our infrastructure, so we can, as the people of Ontario, we can say whose hydro is going over those lines, who's going to control that, the people of Ontario. So if we need to compete with a company like Hydro One, well, we'll compete with them and we'll beat them.
How do you compete with something that has a natural monopoly?
Well, that's pretty easy because I don't think our CEO is going to be earning like $6 or $7 million a month or a year. So I think that'll be pretty easy right there.
But in all seriousness, some people may have not followed this all the way through. There were musings about Hydro One being privatized. What's actually happened? What's the state of the game right now?
Well, the state of the game is that we've lost control of something that is very basic in what we need to be successful as a province. I mean, as a province and as a government, the government has, I think, a responsibility to provide the three basic needs to support life, and that is food, warmth, and shelter. Okay, those are the three basic things that the government needs to really take care of. We need to make sure that we have every Ontarian having those three things. And as long as we start out with that, the rest of it will come into place.
Okay, but so Hydro One, I'm sure some people aren't even aware specifically what is it. So those are the producers of hydropower.
Well, it's OPG, Ontario Power Generation. We have so many different levels of bureaucracy with hydro production, where it used to just be Hydro One did everything. And then somebody along the line decided to split this all up into various pies so that they could hire more bureaucrats and more CEOs and more interim managers, et cetera, et cetera. And again, not that that's necessarily a bad thing, because to specialize in a specific area is sometimes a very good thing. But I mean, I look to what I do as a production supervisor, and I like to be very lean and mean. Okay, and that is we do things as efficiently as possible, and we constantly look for a better way to do something. Just because it's being done one way on any given day doesn't mean that you can't improve on that. And we can certainly improve on the way that Ontario Hydro is being produced and delivered right now. Absolutely.
Well, that's because Chrysler Fiat has competition from GM and from Honda. I don't think anyone's really competing with the OPG.
Not at this particular juncture, but again, if we need to compete against them in order for them to bring their prices down, then that's what we'll do.
Okay, so Hydro One is currently, so you mentioned that it's been split up into various functions. What does Hydro One currently do? If they're not part of power production, are they part of distribution?
Hydro One, again, I think is really the administrative. They're looking, I think, after the infrastructure. OPG is producing the power. Hydro One is deciding, okay, well, we got to put up a line here, a line there, and again, the day-to-day repairs and maintenance of the infrastructure.
And that's been privatized?
To a certain degree, yes. So we still own a certain percentage of it, but the majority shares have been sold off to whoever happens to be owning it, whether it be the banks or certain private individuals.
So is it listed on the TSX now?
That, you know what, I'm not 100% sure.
I was going to say
I wouldn't buy it.
You wouldn't buy it?
I personally would not buy it.
What could be more secure than
even
utility?
when I was playing Monopoly, I never bought the electric.
You never bought the utilities?
Never.
No, the waterway. No. That's how you start to build your empire.
Wasn't big enough.
No.
No.
Pure Baltic Avenue.
Absolutely. Slumlord.
Aside from just lowering hydro costs, what else can be done to improve the employment situation in Ontario?
Well, like I say, with the implementation of the raising of the basic income, that was done too soon, too fast. Okay, we need to slow that down and take a really good look at it. I don't think it should jump to $15 an hour. The minimum wage should not jump to $15 an hour as soon as possible. That has to be done, I think, incrementally over time. And that's something that the Liberals really fouled up. They didn't do anything about it for years and years, and then all of a sudden it just goes right up to $14 an hour. even a company where I work was affected by that, because there are people now that are earning just ever so slightly more than what minimum wage is, and they're looking at it. Okay, I'm working hard in a factory now, and yet the guy that just gave me my coffee this morning is making the same money. Something wrong with this picture. So yeah, we really need to have a hard look at that.
Okay, and okay, so that just sets a price floor for the price of labor. The other things that are going to go into just the natural wages are the supply of labor and the demand for labor. I don't think provincially you can do anything about the labor supply. You're not just going to kick people out of the province to Quebec and Manitoba to reduce the labor pool here.
No.
But you can do things about the demand for labor. So what sorts of barriers do big industrial manufacturers have from setting up shop in Ontario? What can we actually do, again, aside from lowering hydro rates?
Well, like I say, the number of regulations, rules and regulations that are currently essentially stopping businesses from flourishing. I think it's 336,000 different regulations that are on the books. If you were to try to start up a small business right now, it's very very intimidating, and there's not a lot of help out there for you as a small business person, because you're getting hit by the municipal government, you're getting hit by the provincial government, and you're getting hit hard by the federal government. So they all seem to be working against you. So it just does, like I say, for me, it just doesn't make sense for people to start up a business yet until the Trillium Party is in power.
I mean, mine is registered in Delaware, so we don't have these problems.
Absolutely.
Oh, we've got another comment from Facebook. It's from Louise Ewan and Joseph Echelson. Eccleston.
Yes.
The question is, the NWO is an important part of Ontario, but yet the majority of money spent on roads and transportation, it's in Southern Ontario. If the Trillium Party if the Trillium Party forms the government, would it be advantageous to have a MakeWorks twin highway project from the Manitoba border to near Sudbury? NWO is reliant on vehicles to travel anywhere outside of their communities. There is no other passenger transportation alternatives. With the carbon tax coming to Ontario, we are held hostage by the lack of alternative transportation.
Wow. That, I think, is a very well thought out and very good question. I know growing up in Ontario, certainly every time I went out to drive up north, it was always a very good experience. The roads back in the day, I think, were very well maintained. There certainly wasn't the amount of traffic that we have right now. We need to really look at what's happening up north. And really focus on that, because really that's where Ontario's wealth is going to be coming in the near future. So we need to invest in the infrastructure up in northern Ontario, starting from Sudbury all the way up into Thunder Bay, to open up, of course, the Ring of Fire. There's been certain levels of government over the years that have been trying, or so they say they've been trying to get this developed. But we need to seriously have a look at that, because that's where the next economic boom is coming for Ontario.
Well, the current people in government are saying that the demand just isn't high enough for the rare earth metals and the chromium. So what we need to do is wait until the price of those things increases, then instantaneously build all the infrastructure.
No, that is that I believe that is completely and totally wrong. We need to develop it now and stockpile it, and make sure that we have the supply on hand when the opportunity arises, rather than missing the boat when, say, another country necessarily fails to produce what the world needs.
Now, what resources are in the Ring of Fire? Do you know off the top of your head?
Chromite. I think we have the largest deposits of chromite available, which is used in the production of stainless steel, which can be used, in the automotive industry. All right, and again, I'm not trying to be self-serving here, but chromite.
You just do it naturally. You don't have to try.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
A little bit. That's how I got to look this good. At any rate, it's very important that we do develop this. I mean, I have two kids. I have two daughters that are both over 18, and. Certainly, I want to make sure that their futures are very secure. we need to have something that the teenagers, that the young people have to look forward to, and that's like I say, and that's just jobs. We just need to make sure that we have the opportunity. We create the opportunities for them to have the jobs that they want going into the future. And doing that up north, I think, is absolutely integral.
Well, absolutely. Well, over the not anymore. Probably not since 2014, but in the past, one avenue for employment, if you were someone who didn't necessarily have a ton of skills developed yet, you might have just been 18, fresh out of high school, you could go out west and work in the Athabasca oil fields. Mm-hmm. And I knew some people who did this, who were able to save up a bunch of money, go to school without any debt, buy cars, go on trips in the summer. Yeah. That's all evaporated. But do you think if the Ring of Fire was properly developed, that could be an alternative for people in Ontario? Absolutely. There's no question about it. Absolutely no question about it. That is the next big thing here in Ontario. Actually, up in northern Alberta, you didn't even need to necessarily work as a roughneck. You could work on a service rig. Sure. You could work even as a Tim Hortons barista and make good money, enough to be saved. So you mean capitalism works? Yes. It's really, the weather's bad. The Cold Lake is one of the locations. Sure. Absolutely, and like I say, that's why they put an Air Force base up there. Nobody else is going to go near it, so it's a very good. Well, it's not even a nice place to visit, so I wouldn't want to go there. No, not at all. What other issues are near and dear to your heart? What do the people in Brampton South care about? Again, it's really just about employment opportunities. I actually did receive an email from 3 or 4 different people with regards to. I guess private community colleges, and that I was unaware that I guess the accreditation credentials that you're getting from these particular colleges were not necessarily looked upon the same way that, say, an Ontario government funded or a regular community college would be looked upon. And so they've asked the question, if the Trillium Party was in power, how would they make sure that these two systems were actually put on a level playing field? So in all honesty, I don't have an answer for that, but that is something that I think is weighing heavily on my mind, and I'd like to look into that further and certainly get an answer for them. I know that. On the Ontario website, there are certain rules and regulations that these colleges have to follow, and there's some warnings that the government gives to people that are going to these colleges to make sure that they're getting proper value for their money. But I don't think that they're necessarily, I guess, again, for whatever reason, not looked upon as being as, say, good as a Seneca College or a Humber College, et cetera, et cetera. Do any of these colleges teach programming? Yes. If you're a graduate of one of these non-accredited community colleges and you've specialized in programming, please send your resume to info@crm2plus.com. Create clarity for your clients, CRM2plus. Okay, now we're recruiting. Who's self-serving now? They don't pay me to be on this. I have to get my kicks where I can. Okay. So that's a real issue. Now, these private colleges, what caused them to spring up and compete with the government-funded community colleges? What differentiates them in the first place? Well, I believe that there are, I think, more specialized courses available to them to get somebody who may, somebody who is just here from another country, single mothers, et cetera, et cetera. These are the concerns that people have brought to me via this particular email. That may be all that they can do, but they are getting the practical knowledge to become employable. But then I guess the employer is looking at this certificate and saying, well, it doesn't say Humber, it doesn't say Seneca, it doesn't say any university, it just says Bob's College. Well, so like I say, I need to look into this particular situation and really get down to the meat and potatoes of it and find out what is going on. Well, if I were to throw my own 2 cents in, if you do have an environment where small business is thriving, they many new businesses don't have the clout, don't have the money to compete for people with really prestigious college degrees. They will go for anyone who's willing to work hard and try and prove themselves. Some people without degrees at all, and they'll have to learn on the job. That's how these colleges are going to get recognition, when they produce graduates who get good jobs and bring a little bit of clout back to the educational institution.
Yeah, that's certainly a point that I can bring up with these people that have brought this to my attention. But certainly, like I say, I'm going to be looking into this and really finding out what's going on, because they've posed this question to all of the candidates that are currently running in Brampton South. So I'm going to be very interested to see how all the other candidates' assistants do their research for them, and whereas I'll be doing my own research. And this is going to be, I think, an interesting thing to bring up in the debates that I won't be invited to.
Won't be invited to.
Oh, yeah.
But you're not a very combative guy. Maybe they just don't expect you to debate very hard, just agree with everybody.
Well, like I say, it's politics is a tough nut to crack sometimes, and to be a member of a new party is, like I say, you're taking a chance. Okay, but the Trillium Party and my own personal beliefs are right online. It is scary when I look at the website that I had for the 2014 municipal election, and I look at what my value set was, and then I looked at what Bob and the other people were running on, and they were almost carbon copy. Of course, carbon not being a very good word these days, but it was frighteningly similar, and there was absolutely no question in my mind that I needed to be involved in this fight.
Maybe that's why they didn't want you in the debates. They didn't want a plagiarist hanging around.
That could be very true, but like I say, plagiarism is sometimes the best form of flattery. So
now, which way does the arrow of causation run? Are they stealing your ideas? Or are you stealing theirs?
Well, I have to be perfectly honest. I did have an idea once, but unfortunately it died of loneliness. So.
Oh, and we've got a comment from Facebook. This one's from Jan Hansen. info@crm2plus.com. Was that the email for the programming job? Yes, Jan, it's info at symbol CRM2, the number 2, plus plus.com.
Brought to you by the Trillium Party of Ontario.
Well, no, there can't be any official connection between the two, so we'll have to strike. I would ask you to withdraw.
You cannot withdraw the truth. Do I get the glasses? I don't know.
Fantastic. Now, John, I just want to ask you one last major question. I ask it to most of the new candidates who come on this. Why should the people of Brampton South vote for you? What do you bring to the table that the Conservatives, that the Liberals, that the NDP don't bring to the table? What is it about you? What is it about the Trillium Party that is going to lead to good outcomes for Brampton South?
Well, certainly, as all the other candidates have expressed, Trillium Party MPPs work for the constituents. We do not work for the party. So as an elected MPP, the concerns of the people of Brampton South will be brought to Parliament down at Queen's Park, and whether it be through a private member's bill or any other, depending upon how we do in the election, if we happen to form the government, which would be very nice, we'd be bringing forth legislation to ensure that the people of Brampton South's concerns are put into law. Otherwise, the wonderful thing about being a Trillium Party MPP is that you're not relegated to the back bench to just stand up and sit down, being told what to do, how to vote. I will vote the conscience of my constituents, and that has been proven time and time again by our MPP Jack McLaren, who has stood up for the people of his riding and voted sometimes against or sometimes with the current government, and has been standing alone sometimes as being the lone member standing up for what is right. And that will continue not only with myself as MPP, but the numerous other Trillium Party candidates that will be elected this coming June.
Excellent. Well, that's all the time we have for our interview with you. But thank you very much for being a part of Trillium Talk TV.
Can we do it again?
You betcha.
All right.
You betcha. Who knows? Maybe at a local establishment in your riding.
That I'd like to send a very big shout out to all the people at Jack Astor's in Brampton. All one of you that are probably watching. I think that would. Actually, they probably have this up on their TVs at this moment, preempting the Raptors game. Yeah, probably not. But again, to all the people that are strong supporters there at Jack Astor's that are going to work very hard for the Trillium Party in this upcoming election. God bless you all, and look forward to seeing you in about 45 minutes.
Well, thanks very much, John. Right. And we're doing our segment This Week in On Poly once again. We'll be taking a look at politics around Ontario over the past week. Well, Bob, a lot has been going on, hasn't it?
It has indeed. Another day at the circus. And, well, there's always something new happening in Ontario, especially now because everybody's clamoring for the vote.
Absolutely. Well, now, I heard that last week the Jamaican Canadian Association had a debate. Kathleen Wynne was there. The NDP leader, Andrea Horwath, was there. The Green Party leader, Mike Schreiner, was there. But you and Doug Ford, neither of you made it. What do you have against Jamaican Canadians?
I have nothing against Canadians, plain and simple. And I have nothing against Jamaican Canadians. I can't speak to why Doug wasn't there. I mean, he's got his own issues going on. But I wasn't invited. And I took umbrage to that. So I called them up and I say, hey, I wasn't invited to this thing. Why is that? Well, we didn't know. I got a bunch of blah, 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 blah. The fact was I wasn't invited. And when I asked to be invited, they didn't want to have me on the show. Yet they had the Green Party there. And you know what, Greg? We have a sitting member of Parliament. We have a man in there, Jack McLaren, who right now is holding the feet to the fire of the government, asking the questions they don't want to answer, asking the official opposition also questions that they don't want to answer, and even to the point where Jack McLaren told the truth in Parliament, and you know what happened? He got thrown out because he wouldn't recant the truth.
They couldn't handle the truth?
They couldn't handle the truth. That all being said, and then we weren't invited. Did that stop me? No, it didn't. Because I'm from the Trillium Party of Ontario.
So are you one of those guys who you find out that you weren't invited to a birthday party, you ask, can you please invite me? They say no, you show up anyway.
Well, let me tell you, this isn't a birthday party. This is a freedom and democracy. This is about getting the message of the Trillium Party out there, and I don't want to be flippant about that because that's important. The idea that I was not invited to that really offended me. So I went there. We had a couple other candidates go with me. George Garvita from Scarborough and Lucy Guerrera from Scarborough as well, riding in Scarborough. We went there, and I went there, and I was allowed to go in. But then as soon as I started talking to anybody, security come over and said, no, you can't talk to anybody. You have to leave. Excuse me? When did I wake up in communist Russia? When did I wake up in communist Cuba? When did I wake up in communist China? For Pete's sake, this is something we still hold a value in Canada and Ontario. We're allowed to talk to people. So, anyways, security led me out. And then I was yakking to people outside as well as in the lobby of the place. And luckily, Lucy knew somebody with the, CBKM FM radio. Well, there was an after debate interview going on in the media room. And I got to sit down at the party, and I think the graphic is up there showing us sitting down there. And I was sitting with Kathleen Wynne. We had a nice conversation. A lot of what was on the table was the sex ed curriculum. And as you know, Greg, we are totally against the sex ed curriculum the way it stands right now. It has to be revisited. and revamped with input from parents. A lot more input from parents than what it is right now.
So you're saying that the current architect of the sex ed curriculum, you have a problem with his past or something?
Is he out of jail now? Because he was in jail for sex crimes with children, wasn't he? And the deputy education minister under Kathleen Wynne, the organizer of the sex ed curriculum, the guy who says that he designed the sex ed curriculum, he was actually charged and convicted of sex crimes against children. Come on, folks, that's just not right. Now, with Kathleen Wynne, I see where the liberal tactic is going right now. I'd say, well, the sex ed curriculum is not all about those controversial subjects. The biggest part of it is about good things, with the internet and children and stuff like that. And I agree, that's pretty good. But it's like the omnibus bills that these people keep trying to put through. What an omnibus bill is this: they decorate the whole front of the bill with all these good things like protect the puppies, protect the children, and all this, and then they slip in all the garbage underneath it. So if you vote against it, then you look like you're like a heathen, communist child hater. But the whole point of those omnibus bills is to decorate it with good stuff in the front and slip in the real powerful stuff underneath. And that's what the sex education curriculum is all about. You have all this, some good stuff in the front, and then you have all this bad stuff that sucks the heart out of the family values in the body of it. But that all being said, it was a good exchange, and so much so that we've the radio station has invited us back again to talk on next the 28th of the month. I believe 28th we're going in there around noonish or so, and they want us to be there for an hour interview.
So
they like me.
You convinced them to invite you to the next party.
Strange how you say the truth, how you say what your values are, and if you say it loud enough and you don't mind attending somewhere where you're not quite invited, the truth starts to get out, and that's how the Trillium Party's growing. That's why we're growing. That's why we have a sitting member. That's why we have 40 candidates. That's why we have all the memberships that we have. And that's probably why they're afraid of us.
Well, you've got 40 candidates, really?
Yeah, 40 and change right now. They're still waiting for approval from Elections Ontario and some. It's quite an involved process, and we're hoping to have an entire slate. That would be wonderful.
Well, now, Bob, those 40 candidates, is that enough for you to gain access to the CBC debates?
Well, the criteria for the CBC, I love that question, Greg. Okay, so we're right in the middle of a debate with the CBC right now, and they've made a mistake. CBC, in my opinion, they like to control things quite a bit. So what they did when there was some, I think it was the Liberals were pushing to get the Green Party on to debate. Fair enough. I mean, they're a party out there. But then the CBC said, nope, we're not allowing anybody on to debate that doesn't have a sitting member of the legislature. Oops, they made a mistake. They forgot about the Trillium Party. We have a sitting member of the legislature. We're intending to run candidates in all the ridings. And that is the criteria for getting on a CBC debate. Unless they change it again to meet, they'll come up with some rule. Guaranteed they're going to come up with some rule why we shouldn't be in the debate. Change is coming, Greg. Change is coming, and we're going to make sure, we're putting everything we can into getting that debate. They got a problem. They slipped up. And I promise you they're going to try and manufacture some reason why I shouldn't be there. So, anyway, we're going to fight it because, you know what? I crashed one debate, I can crash another.
The reasoning behind excluding you was always there. They don't call them the Canadian Brainwashing Corporation for nothing.
Oh my gosh, I'm sure there's going to be some problem with that. Yeah, these are not the droids you're seeking. Is that what you're trying to say?
These are not the debaters you were looking for. Well, a few other things have happened this week as well. David Livingston has been convicted. He's going to see 4 months of hard time.
You said 4 years, right?
4 months.
What do you mean 4 months? Wait, how did the judge describe it? His conduct was an affront and an attack on democratic institution and values, or an attempt to tamper with the democratic process requires a strong denunciatory response. So I'm sure you said 4 years. It is actually 4 months.
Well, I did say 4 months, and it turns out it was for the illegal use of a computer and attempted mischief to data, although the attempted mischief to data charge was later dropped.
So wait a minute. So $1.6 billion, maybe 2.1, depending on who you accounting thing, disappeared, and there was an attempt with and so all this money disappeared, and all he got was 4 months. Probably going to get to 2 months.
Well, no, not quite. He also got 12 months of probation, and he has to do 100 hours of community service.
Oh my God!
I know. They're throwing the book at him.
Didn't I hear the lawyer actually said that because of his age, this was onerous?
The lawyer did say it was onerous. I don't have the exact quote in front of me.
Gosh, Hillary Clinton must be horrified about what the. Let's talk about what $1.6 billion is.
Well, let's just remember, though, this guy didn't steal $1.6 billion. He merely covered up for people who didn't steal it. They more or less set it on fire.
We'll never say the word steal because, but what happened was $1.6 billion disappeared on not making something. Oh my gosh, I don't know how often we can afford to not do something if we lose a 1.6 billion each time. You know what 1.6 billion is? We have a hard time getting around that. We have a hard time understanding it. We understand $650,000 for a logo for the marijuana.
Now, I'm sure $650,000, that sort of money invested in a logo really gets the creative juices flowing and produces something with vision and purpose and inspiring.
Okay, forget that. The $650,000 is, well, that's like a Kathleen Wynne. Shut up and take my money right now, please. You know what? Who knows how long I'm going to be in office, but just take my money, please, and don't forget to vote for me. I'll make you vote. I'll buy your vote. Come on. I saw the last budget. But at $1.6 billion, on a serious note, Greg, let's look at what that is. Right now, there's 16,000 autistic children in this province. 16,000. That's a lot. It's a serious problem. If you took that $1.6 billion that just vaporized, that just disappeared, going down, who knows, consultants, lawyers, I have no idea because nobody knows where it went. That would be $100,000 that could go to real benefit helping out kids, could help out a lot of mental health issues. And you know what? God knows those parents could use the help. God knows those children need that help, especially after the Liberals have cut so much funding towards the autistic children. That's just wrong. $1.6 billion can make a difference in real people's lives.
Yeah, so 16,000, that would be 100,000 per autistic child. You could, if you pool some of those resources together, set up housing for a lot of them. Although I wouldn't recommend putting that housing anywhere near Doug Ford.
Oh my God! You must be referring to Doug's quote. This is just.
You can't sue me for libel because you have to sue the Toronto Star first.
Thank you for saying that. Okay, I think you're referring to the quote Doug Ford made. What is it? According to Toronto Star, Doug said in response to a home for autistic children being opened up in his neighborhood, he actually said this: "It ruined the community. My heart goes out to kids of autism, but no one told me they'd be leaving the house." Okay.
Doug, did you think that they were going to be locked inside? What were you picturing?
At that stage, you can accept that, okay, I said something boneheaded and stuff like that. But then he doubles down and says, if it comes down to it, I'll buy the house myself and sell it. Oh my gosh, you can't call it an accidental slip at that stage. It's unbelievable. We were talking a little bit about the serious plight of the autistic children, and that is so serious. But we've had another tragedy happen in Canada, and that was in Saskatchewan with the Bronco, the bus that had the accident. Well, one of the things, we had a training session for some of our candidates the other week there, and one of our supporters, Rob Roddick, has a hockey stick here. Is that graphic up on the screen? Has a hockey stick there, and it's signed by Don Cherry. And it's a hockey stick that has been used all over Canada. It's been going all over there. But it was all but taped up, and the Bronco logo's there. It was a tragedy what happened there, and no words can describe it. But let me say this. The Trillium Party, they're in our minds because those were so many young kids that had their whole lives ahead of them. Didn't need to happen, shouldn't have happened. But on a serious note, I want to let you know that we are thinking of them, and I think everybody is. So, let's remember, life can be short. Let's treat it as best as we can, and let's help as many people as we can, which is what the Trillium Party is all about. So that's sort of the weekend Ontario Poly without getting too deep into the gutter there. John was on earlier today. I think he's our political operations officer. He's a pretty talented individual. And I just want to have a big shout out to John Grant, the candidate in Brampton South. He deserves to win this election. He'll make a huge difference. So, John, thank you for coming out and saying your piece. And that's about it for Ontario Poly.
Well, this isn't Ontario politics, but the Leafs did beat the Bruins last night, so they're not down 3 games in the series. Do you think they can make a comeback?
Okay, the Leafs beat the Bruins, and we had the biggest ice storm in history. I think we got some crazy stuff happening here. Anything can happen.
Anything is possible.
The Trillium Party will be the next government in Ontario.
Fantastic. Well, we'll end on that note. This has been This Week in On Poly, and this has been Trillium Talk TV. Thanks for watching, Ontario, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you, Ontario.